This is part 4 of LINQ tutorial. In this video, we'll discuss aggregate functions in LINQ. LINQ standard query operators like select, where, order by, min, max, count, etc. can be broadly classified into these categories: aggregate operators, grouping operators, restriction operators, etc. In this video, we will be discussing aggregate operators. Here are the aggregate operators: min, max, sum, count, average, and aggregate. In this video, we'll be discussing all these aggregate operators except the aggregate operator. In our next video, we'll be discussing the benefit of aggregate operator. Now let's write some examples using these aggregate operators. At the moment, on my machine, I have two instances of Visual Studio running. One solution is called demo. So here we'll be writing examples without using LINQ, and in the other solution, that is in LINQ demo solution, we will be rewriting the same example using LINQ. Okay, so now what we want to do is, here I've got an integer array and it contains numbers from 1 to 10. So we want to write a program which is going to find out the smallest number in this array and then print that out. Okay, and we want to do that without using LINQ. So in order to implement that, we first need a variable. Let's make it a nullable integer, and we are going to use this variable to store the smallest number, to store the result. Okay, so how we are going to find that? So we are going to use a for each loop and then loop through each integer that we have got in the numbers collection, and then we check if this result variable, if it does not have a value, or if I is less than the value that is already there within the result variable, then in that case we want to store that value of I within the result variable. So this is how we find the smallest number within this numbers array. And then finally what we want to do is write out the smallest number. Alright, so look at how much code we have to write just to find out the smallest number within a given array. So now when we run this, it should print out number 1. Now let's see how to achieve the same thing using LINQ. So let's copy this array and then let's move to the other instance of Visual Studio, which is LINQ demo, and paste that array right there. And notice that I'm already using system.link namespace. And so let's say int result equals, so we have the numbers array, and then look at this, we have this min LINQ function. So all you need to do is just use that function. So this function is going to return the smallest number within this collection. And let's print the result out. So console.writeLine result. So now when we run this, we should get number 1 as the result. Okay, look at how simple it is with LINQ. Now let's say I want to find out the smallest even number. Now if I have to achieve that without using LINQ, then there's the same logic, but except that here we need to check if I mod 2 equals 0. So when will a number be an even number? If it's divisible by 2. If the remainder is 0, then that's when the number is even number. In that case, check if the result variable has already has a value. If it doesn't have a value, or if it is less than the result, then store that within the result variable. So this should give us the smallest even number. So again, so much of code to find the smallest even number in a given array of integers. So let's run this. Notice that the result is 2, and if you have to achieve that with LINQ, all you need to do is use the where standard query operator, and then we want to filter these numbers. And how do we want to filter them? So take each number, let's call it x such that x mod 2 equals 0. So what is this where operator going to do? It's going to return, look at the return type, it's going to return I enumerable of int, meaning a list of integers, but then it's only going to return all the even numbers. And then from that list, this min query extension method is going to return the smallest even number. So when we run this, we should get 2 as the result. And again, look at how precise the syntax is with LINQ. Okay, so now let's see how to find out the largest number. So to find out the largest number without using LINQ, so we can comment this one because we want to find the largest number within the array. So if we have to achieve that without using LINQ, the same idea, we're going to loop through each number in the array, and then we say if I value is greater than what is already there in the result, then store that value in the result. Okay, so when we run this, it should print 10, but with LINQ, it's as simple as saying, just use max function. So this is going to give us the maximum number within that array. So number 10, and when we run this, it should give number 10. Okay, now if we want to find out the largest even number, then include this condition, right? So this is going to return the largest even number, which is again 10. And if we want to achieve the same thing with LINQ, use the where and filter the even numbers, retrieve the even numbers, and then get the maximum out of it. Again, the output should be 10. Okay, now let's say how to find out the sum of all numbers. So if we have to achieve that without using LINQ, so let's comment this one right here. We want to find out the sum of all numbers. So here we are going to initialize this result to 0, and then we are looping through each element within the array, and then we'll say result equals result plus I. Okay, so again, there's a bit of code to achieve this. So when we run this, we should get the sum of first 10 numbers, which is 55. This is without using LINQ. And if we have to achieve that with LINQ, all you need to do is use the sum aggregate function. So dot sum. When we run this, we should get the same output, which is 55. Now if we want to find the sum of all even numbers, then we use this condition right here. Right, so this should compute the sum of all even numbers. Let's go ahead and run this. Sum of all even numbers is 30. Now let's see how to achieve that with LINQ. All you need to do is use the where extension method, filter out the even numbers, and then compute the sum of them. So again, it should give the same output. So now let's see how to find out the count of all numbers, how many elements we have in a given array. Now if we have to do that without LINQ, then instead of computing the sum of numbers, what we want to do is we want to actually count the number of elements. So instead of saying result equals result plus I, we will say result equals result plus 1. So when we run this, we should get 10. And if we have to achieve that with LINQ, we use the count aggregate function. So let's go ahead and run this. We should get 10 as the result. And if we want to find the count of all even numbers, then we use this condition here in the for each loop. So this should return 5. And if we have to achieve that with LINQ, we use the where extension method, and we should get 5. And let's see how to find out average of all numbers. Now if we have to find the average of all numbers, we have to first add all the numbers together and then divide that sum by total number of elements that we have got in that array. So to hold the sum, I'm actually going to have another variable. Let's call it int sum. Actually, let's make the type here to double sum, and then to hold the total number of elements, let's call it total. We have an integer variable. Let's again initialize that to 0, and result is going to be double. Okay, so we want to find the average of all numbers. So we're going to loop through each number within the array, and then we can comment this one. So we need to find the sum. So sum equals sum plus I, and we also need to find the total number of elements. So total equals total plus 1. Right. So once we have the sum and total, to compute the average, result equals sum by total number of elements, and we print out the result. So when we run this, we should get the average of our numbers from 1 to 10, which is 5.5. Now if we have to achieve that same thing with LINQ, all we do is use the average aggregate function. And the reason why we have compilation error is because average returns double, but this result is of type integer. So let's make this to double, run that, and 5.5. And if we want the average of all even numbers, we use the where, and then say x such that x mod 2 equals 0. So get all the even numbers and then compute the average of that, which is 6. And if we have to achieve that without using LINQ, then we need to have this condition right here. So let's run this. So 6 average. Okay, so we have used some of the aggregate functions. Let's look at another example. So let's say we have the string array right here, and we want to find out the shortest country name and the number of characters in it, and the longest country name number of characters. So let's copy this string. Now first let's see how to achieve this without using LINQ. So let's get rid of all this from here. So we have a string array. Now what we want to do is print the number of characters in the shortest country name. So for that, first let's use a variable to hold the result. So let's call it result, and let's actually make it nullable type and hold null value. Alright, we are going to use a for each loop for each string str in the countries. If the result variable does not have a value, or if the str.length, okay, if that is less than the value that we have in the result, then we know for sure, that string has got less characters than what is already stored in the result variable. In that case, we'll say result equals str.length, and then finally we'll print a message, the shortest country name. So console.writeLine, shortest country name has whatever characters in its name. And where do we get this from the result variable. So now when we run this, it should actually print 2, because here UK is the name of the country which has got the least number of characters, which is 2. So let's go ahead and run this. Look at that, the shortest country name has 2 characters in its name. Now if we have to achieve this with LINQ, look at how simple it is. Invoke the min function and then pass a lambda expression which is going to return the length of each string. Okay, so it's basically going to get the string or the length which is the smallest. In this case it's going to return 2, that because that's the length of the smallest number of characters in a given string. So to achieve that, let's copy this array and paste it right there. We don't need this variable. Countries dot minimum, country such that country.length. Okay, and if we want to print the same message, let's actually copy this string, paste it right there, and once we run this, the same result. Okay, and if we want to find out the country which has got the longest number of characters in its name, then the largest country name has whatever characters in its name, and instead of min, use max function. So when we run this, we should get 5, as India has got 5 characters in its name. And if we have to achieve that without using LINQ, then the same program, but we say length is greater than what we already have in result variable. And let's say the largest country name has 5 characters. Okay, so in our next video we'll discuss using aggregate operator. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.